Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around was Battlefield. What was that one about?
You'll have to remind me, so much has happened since then.
Right. So, Arthurian legend is real in another dimension, and it has since crossed over to our dimension, and the evil Morgaine is reborn or brought back out of prison that she was put in by Merlin, who is a future incarnation of the Doctor, and then she brought forth the Destroyer to destroy Earth, but the Brigadier was there with silver bullets and shot him, and then there was a whole message about nuclear war at the end.
Okay. Sorry, we've opened a show and had our Beagle in the hospital for knee surgery, so it's been a week.
Yeah, so...
He's good now.
Yeah. Yeah, but otherwise it was a good episode. It was good to see the Brigadier one more time. So yeah, it was nice. And today we are moving on to Ghostlight. Now, I want this to be very clear for the folks at home, which is everyone except the two of us. We have no bias going into this episode. However, many comments on the reaction to the Happiness Patrol said that we would utterly hate Ghostlight. So I don't want to say it's your fault if we don't like it. Because if we don't like it, we genuinely just won't like it. But the microphone's not on. Why isn't the microphone on? And... Okay, that was weird. Anyway, okay, and we're good. Sorry about that. There's probably like 2 minutes of the audio not sounding amazing, but that's okay. Unless I got lucky and that camera actually did record off that microphone, but I don't know. Anywho, as I was saying, now in a much more clear audio file, again, we have no preconceived notions as best we can. All we know is some people think we might not like this episode. I hope that is not the case. And if it is the case, let's all just calmly discuss. I mean, I'm not going to look at the comments, but let's all calmly, let's not lose our heads over an episode of Doctor Who, which is not just about this episode, can be applied to every episode from 1963 to 2024. Let's all just calm down when we talk about Doctor Who. No matter what episode, no matter what Doctor it is, or what era we're in, let's all just calm down. That said, this already has a plus. It's only 3 parts, so that's already a good plus. All right. But other than that, nothing going into it other than being told we probably won't like it.
All right, I will say this about the title. In my profession, which is theater, Ghostlight is that one single light bulb on a stand that they always put in the middle of the stage in a darkened theater. Not exactly sure why it's called a ghost light. Maybe to keep the ghosts of the theater away. I have actually been in a theater where I have, shall we say, experienced, I didn't see it, but I experienced the presence of a ghost when I was in college. That was kind of weird. But anyway, so Ghostlight, I have no concept of what this story is going to be about, so I'm going into it with an open mind.
Yes, we are both going in with an open mind. And if we weren't going in with an open mind, we wouldn't have made it 26 seasons into this old show. So
this is 4 years now?
4 or 5.
4 or 5, something like it. So, yeah.
It's been a lot. It's been a long... And I know a lot of people, have been watching Doctor Who this whole time or anything, but this has been a large portion of my life I've dedicated to one show. Or 2 or 3, if you want to call it that. So, yeah. With that said, do we have anything else?
I got nothing.
Then let's just go ahead and all calmly start watching Ghostlight. I'm sorry, apparently I turned on Dracula by accident.
I brought you your dinner and your copy of the Times.
didn't know monsters read the Times.
Everyone reads the Times. Like an emu there.
When was the Royal Flying Corps invented?
The name wasn't thought up until 1912. I give you a badge if you like. Pass me another.
Oh no, the emu is evil.
Actually rode in an elevator like that when we were in Paris in 1959. 59, not 69. Igor Unchained.
Join our other guest in the drawing room.
Professor, this is an asylum. The patient's in charge.
Given a chance, it could be Bedlam. Thank you,
Nimrod, sir.
Nimrod. Thank you, Nimrod.
Good grief.
Oh, this is my friend Ace.
I see that all the stories about you are true. You have no shred of decency, even parading your shameless wantons in front of your guests.
Does he mean me?
Come, Alice. You can borrow a dress of mine.
It's, Ace, actually. Thanks, anyway.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Yes.
The blinding light.
He's an alien Neanderthal.
Quoth the Riven. What the hell?
Oh, is there a free lecture thrown in with dinner?
Sermons are his speciality.
Do we take notes?
Mr. Smith disputes man's rightful dominion over the forces of nature.
I hope you have a taste for calves' brains, Doctor.
They're actually
He
pretty good.
maintains that
I've had
mankind
them.
itself should adapt
Need a little salt.
to serve nature or become extinct.
You tricked me! This is Perivale!
But it was Paravel, like, years and years ago.
We all have a universe of our own terrors to face.
I face mine on my own terms.
But don't you want to know what happened here?
No!
You've learned something you didn't recognize when you were 13.
Like what?
The nature of the horror that you sensed here.
It's alien.
Did she tell this story in her first episode? I didn't think so.
See to it that the Dean's time passes as quickly as possible.
Very good, sir.
That's the way to the zoo. That's the way to the zoo.
Chloroform does not act that quickly.
No.
It can't be easy being so far away from home, struggling to adapt to an alien environment.
My roots are in this house. I'm as human as you are.
Yes.
Afflicted with an enemy.
Now, the house doesn't seem to have electricity, so it would seem to me that the elevator would be a manual operated elevator, but minor point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well. Aliens.
Apart from the aliens.
Island of Dr. Moreau.
I wasn't expecting that, but that's an interesting twist.
A very sort of, it's aside from creepy, it's very period style. The old man from Oxford, very stuffy. That's a very common stereotypical character. The what we assume to be the alien guy with the dark glasses. Again, it is very intriguing. Again, it seems to have, first of all, the basis of Darwin's theories, which he's right, completely upended science in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. But add the alien idea, perhaps, that they have come down to essentially try to hybridize certain species with humans. And again, I don't see why we would not enjoy this.
Yeah, like the everything about the only complaint, and it's a pretty minor point. It's not really about this episode, but just sort of a thing that keeps happening in this era. I don't understand why they keep making episodes where it's like, hey, we did this thing before, and it's like, no, you didn't. Like they're talking about this, like Ace is saying, like, oh, I told you all this story about how I found this house and I was terrified. And it's like, you didn't say that on screen. Like, because I'm thinking back, it was it Dragonfire was Ace's first episode, and that really wasn't. At least I think. And now we're just not remembering it, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't featured at all. She said she was from Perryvale, but just that she was at a boarding school, something exploded, and she ended up in space, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so, and I don't know why, like, multiple episodes, like, with the, like, Silver Nemesis, where it's like, oh, you know, the Doctor has already encountered Lady Painford, and it's like, when was this? That didn't happen, you know? At least with, like, last episode, you know, they did it where it's like, all of those characters knew the Doctor, but the Doctor didn't know them, so it's clearly a future version of himself that encounters them.
Now, this probably goes all the way back to the Hartnell era. Wasn't there an episode or a serial that was in a haunted house?
Yeah, there was like an episode, but it was like some like amusement park haunted house. So,
but you know, the Victorian era is just absolutely perfect for mining stories because it talk about the dichotomy. Here was an entire society, not only in Great Britain but in England and most of Europe, where there was this veneer of civility where we all had the rules and we all had to do everything exactly the way society expected of us. But underneath that was just the most depraved underbelly to this entire thing. And it may have to do with the, you know, sudden emergence of the industrial age and the huge amount of wealth concentrated in the hands of a few people, and of course the great bourgeoisie, which, you know, led to the French Revolution. So, I mean, it's just a perfect time to set this stuff, and I'm kind of surprised they haven't done more of this.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, it's like, what is it about the Victorian era that's sort of perfect for this horror, you know, story? And, I mean, even something like, you're right, it's that sort of like, they've built up society, you know, high society, to be so perfect and rigid, and everything, it goes all according to the rules, and everyone is prim and proper. So just taking it, twisting it just a little bit, and suddenly it starts getting scarier, you know, or even just looking at it, it's like, you know, like, oh, they're all, you know, you have the perfect gentleman and everything. It's like, well, what's just underneath, you know, the suit? What's just behind those lifeless eyes?
Some of the greatest pieces of literature come from this time period. He mentioned Conan Doyle, you know, all the Sherlock Holmes stuff, and there was a lot of really creepy stuff in Sherlock Holmes. But Robert Louis Stevenson, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was literally the epitome of all of this, because here you've got, you know, the upright, proper, prim Dr. Jekyll, and he transforms into the incredibly awful brute of Mr. Hyde. So, I mean, this is...
And it's also like, thinking, and I don't know if it's exactly the same era, but something like, you know, like a pirate story, you know, where it's like, especially like that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie kind of works with that, where it's like, you know, even though you have the sort of the grunge and everything of the actual pirates, but just seeing like, you know, Elizabeth Swann in her house, you know, in the governor's house, and then just seeing all these zombie pirates coming out, and it's like, that is terrifying.
The most of the piracy things, if I recall correctly, and again, please don't quote me on any of this, mid 1700s. Again, this was right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in England, which was in the 1730s, if I recall correctly. It took quite a while, 75 to 100 years, to really make it big here in the United States. But yeah, again, the piracy thing, again, you got huge amounts of wealth concentrated in landowners and the upper class, and then the lower class. And again, the pirates are basically saying, why do they get all of this? And, we're stuck here scrubbing barnacles off the bottom of a boat sort of thing. So, yeah, there was, we're still doing it now, but there was this almost 200-year period from the early 1700s to the early 1900s where there was this huge class difference. And, again, this seems to be a perfect story for that.
Yeah. Well, and even something like... Because I feel like you would also have an easy sort of plot for, and not saying that this is where this is going, but for a sort of Victorian horror thing of it'd be pretty easy because all you have to do is say something in this house is haunted. Maybe it's something that a British explorer stole from somewhere, I don't know, Africa. The entire continent of Africa, and now it's in this house where it shouldn't be, and now something bad is happening, It's we brought a mummy back here. Maybe that wasn't a great idea. In fact, I think that's why they made a movie called The Mummy in the early 1900s.
And the pirates stealing Cortez's gold, or the Aztec's gold, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or in the more recent kind of remake of that story, the Jungle Cruise, where Dwayne Johnson was part of the crew that stole something that they weren't supposed to, and again then got stuck there in the middle of the jungle. But yes,
part of that movie.
Stories of the Dark Continent. He referenced Livingston, and I can't remember the name of the reporter. Stanley and Livingston. Livingston disappeared for years in the middle of the jungle, somewhere in the Congo, if I recall correctly. And a newspaper reporter tracked him down, and it found out, he was trying to, if I remember correctly, trying to help the people, ministering to them as a physician, that sort of thing. But yes, there's all sorts of stories of this projecting European and American values on a continent where they literally have no business being, and the huge clash between the indigenous people of Africa, or Asia for that matter, or South America, against the European conquistadors.
Yeah, so all of that to say, it was an interesting first episode. Yeah. So if this does go south, it's going to have to really go south.
Now, my impression from those comments was that we wouldn't like it because it was surreal. This isn't surreal. I mean, this is perfect genre from this time period.
Yeah, it's just all we're missing is for the first person to die, and then we have to figure out, who's up.
Now, I will say my first impression when they were bringing the food to the guy and they slipped it under the door, there was a brilliant Twilight Zone episode where a man, I can't remember if he was an American or European, but he got lost in the Alps somewhere, and he found a monastery, secluded monastery, just way out in the middle of nowhere. And they said, we can let you in, but whatever you do, when you hear the howling and the screaming, you mustn't do anything about that. And so he tries to get them to explain, and they said, no, it's better that you don't understand. And it turns out, he hears the howling and the screaming, and he goes and he finds this bolted door. The man on the other side says, please, you've got to let me out. You don't know these people are monsters, and they're keeping me locked up here. And he's very persuasive, very convincing, and ultimately, by the end of the episode, the guy says, all right, I'm going to let you out. And he opens the door, and the prisoner inside sweeps out, and he just walks down the corridor. But every time he passes a column, suddenly his appearance begins to change. His face seems to get elongated. He gets this little sharp beard. He suddenly has a cape with a very tall collar on it. And in the last one, when he turns and looks around, he's got these two horns sticking out the top of his head. And you realize the monks in the monastery had literally imprisoned Satan himself, the devil. And this poor guy fell prey to it and let him out onto the world again, which ultimately they say in the end of the episode would lead to World War II. So anyway, so this is fascinating stuff.
Well, the Twilight Zone was weird sometimes.
Oh, Rod Serling, one of the great writers of the mid-century. So
yeah.
Let's go on.
Let's move on to part 2.
Quickly! It's getting out! Oh, give me that!
Stay calm! Following the tunnel! Why we have the lamp, Cristie? Come on, lamp.
Uh-oh. Use the stick!
I'll sort you lot out!
Use it better!
Good night. Sleep tight. Up the wooden hill to Bedfordshire, otherwise known as Java. Well, not tonight, Josiah Fiend. Your puppet show doesn't fool me. Sorry to spoil your big game hunt, but Ace needs my...
Oh, jeez.
Let us go!
I didn't think they'd be packing.
Ace, you haven't been tampering.
It was an accident.
All my work could be ruined.
That's my girl.
Oh, come on.
Genetic codes.
DNA.
You've done a lot of exploring in here, haven't you, Josiah?
This is a stone spaceship.
Yes, and the real owner won't be pleased when it wakes up.
I am the real owner.
There's so many guns in this place.
Cargo.
Do it now! Now!
Good job.
Shouldn't we follow them? What about Josiah?
You sounded a little husky.
Oh, you mean he's changing into one of those things?
Oh. Blimey.
Man has been the same, sir, since he stood in the Garden of Eden. And he was never, ever a chattering, gibbering ape.
It would help if you didn't have so much hair on your face.
Josiah knows as much about its secrets as a hamburger knows about the Amazon desert.
Sounds a bit like you in the TARDIS.
Meh.
Soon I shall restore the blighted British Empire to its full power and vigor.
You're no better than animals.
The Reverend makes...
Now, Inspector, perhaps you can assist us with our inquiries.
There's a light over at the Frankenstein place.
10 minutes was all it took to wake up the most sophisticated civilized police inspector.
What's all this then?
No self-control, these Mediterraneans, too excitable. Nasty tempers, too.
Yes, especially when roused.
Well, that was wholly racist.
Inspector? Found anything?
Nothing. This place has more locked doors than Reading Jail.
Where... What was his name? Oscar Wilde.
All civilization
Was
starts
jailed.
with hunting and foraging.
My half-cream done. You desiring. In the darkness you shall find it. Don't let it out!
Oh, jeez.
Lights.
Light?
Alright, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what's happening for the last 10 minutes, but hey, it's interesting.
Right, I mean, it's a Victorian melodrama mystery with, this alien light, whatever it is, thrown in.
Look, if you think an episode is not going to be interesting for us, you have to do one of two things. You have to either make it a historical, or you have to put the master in it. This did one of those, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I like the different, evolutions of Josiah.
What... I don't want to say I'm confused. I'm confounded a little bit. What appeared to be older Josiah is now a younger one. He shed his outer husk, and now he's whatever age he is.
Well, yeah.
And again, we always said when you're intrigued but you have no idea where this is going, that's always a good sign. So
yeah. So, I mean, I guess with that, it's the. I guess he's now become a Victorian butterfly. So it's dyed his hair, and now he doesn't fear the light. I mean, it kind of, at the very least. So, I mean, the other thing too is they made this whole big deal about Ace and Perryvale. It's interesting. It's like it doesn't quite factor into anything. Like maybe it will in the last part, but it's like it doesn't seem to really factor in. Other than this was a place she went to, and there was evil there. But that seemed to be about it.
I suspect that they will tie it up in the third episode.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, if they don't, then it was a red herring.
Yeah, is just like why even bring up that Ace had told this to the doctor when she hadn't in a prior episode. So, but other than that, that's just like a minor thing. So,
Josiah, come back! How do you do? I'm the doctor, and this is my friend Ace, and I hope you slept well.
I think he is the 80s.
Looks a little like
devil is that thing?
Pertwee.
It's an angel, Steve.
Yeah.
Control!
Now. Tell it now.
How long have I been asleep? And why have I naturalized in this form?
It's not quite the voice I expected, but
How many more times light? This is Earth. I mean, why don't you check the instruments in your spaceship? Where has he got to now?
How does light move
he doesn't
so
walk
fast?
into a room.
It travels at the speed of thought.
Earth. Why mention that wretched planet to me?
If you don't like it, then bog off.
Yes, just like you. Only I didn't get caught napping. Why don't you forget the survey light? And go!
Oh, it worked.
I bet the props people had a field day with this.
Eh. Yeah.
The blood is the life.
It's nice and crunchy, though.
Lots of protein.
Wasn't my fault. I'm not guilty. I can help it.
No control, no!
Oh,
Come back! Ah, you won't get far!
Of course, if she was a real lady, I wouldn't be in a boudoir.
Oh, things are getting out of control. Even I can't play this many games at once.
Help me. Help me with my hunt.
I haven't got time, Redfurs.
But I'm hunting the rarest creature in the world. The crowned sex, Kuberg. Look.
Really? But who's sponsoring the expedition? Josiah Samuel Smith.
When I find it, I shall shoot it.
you shoot Queen Victoria?
I don't want to hurt. Control, help me!
Good job.
I wanted to see how it works, so I dismantled it. But I need another
Well, at least you have a hobby.
specimen. They're evolving even as I speak. My entire catalogue of the planet is worthless. Centuries of work
I mean,
wasted.
the other thing, I completely get him.
Tell me where I can find the doctor.
Here's Johnny.
Go on, try again. The rain in Spain is mainly down the drain.
The rain in Spain falls mainly.
There you are, Ace, my dear.
Kick her.
Where's Gwendolyn?
Better off without you, Governor.
You win this move, Doctor, but I will not suffer that creature at my table.
That, sir, is no way to speak in front of a lady like.
Oi, Jungle Jim, I'm here too, you know.
No one hurting
Control. Not in gutter now.
Who was it said Earthmen never invite their ancestors round to dinner? Oh, which reminds me, Lady Pritchard.
Now there's
Have you seen this?
shades of Pygmalion.
It belongs to your daughter Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn. Mama. Oh, my dear. Oh, my dear.
Is it interesting getting out of being hypnotized by just seeing yourself?
Dogs were...
They never harmed you. I've decided Earth's future.
Oh.
I was going to reduce it to this.
Oh no.
So you started with Inspector Mackenzie.
The cream of Scotland Yard.
Primordial soup. The most precious substance in the universe.
No more evolution, no more life. No more amendments to my catalogue.
All is change, all is movement. Tell me, Light, haven't you just changed your location?
Not yet.
What's the matter, Light? Changed your mind?
You are endlessly agitating, unceasingly mischievous. Will you never stop?
You get that a
I
lot.
suppose I could.
Nothing remains the same.
Even remains change. This planet, it can't help itself.
Will not change. I'll wake up soon.
Change is the only constant.
Well,
Subject for catalogue. File under imagination, comma, lack of.
Excuse me, sir.
We gotta get clear of the takeoff.
Take off. They've gone. Like a passing thought.
oh, that makes sense.
I felt it here in 100 years' time.
An evil older than time itself.
So I burned the house down.
Any regrets?
Yes.
Yes.
I wish I'd blown it up instead.
Wicked.
All right.
Well, I hate to say we told you so, but we told you so.
That's good. I mean, here's the thing: is no one's going to be mad that we like the episode.
No.
So we're off. We're good this time.
I almost thought there at the end, and again, I hate to bring parallels to, of all things, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but the servants turn against the master in that one. And at the end, they prepare the transit beam, and the castle literally lifts off and heads back to transvestite Transylvania. But I mean, I'm sure that had no influence on this. But again, you've got this overbearing commander, Light, who seriously has echoes of Stephen Adams and his whole Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The one guy who literally has the time machine and he's going through all time, and his mission is to insult every person in the world. This guy has been ordered to catalog, but realizing that he can't catalog it because once he gets done with something, it changes on him. He has to restart. He doesn't want to do that again. So the minions overthrow him and say, you've botched your assignment, and we're getting out of here, and you can be blown to pieces for all we care.
Yeah. Well, and it's such an interesting thing because it's like I guess I can see where people were concerned, where we would be sitting here like, what's going on? This guy's middle. What's going on? But if anything, it is actually rather simple. Where it's just the three of them are just like components to a computer, essentially.
Yeah.
Light being the most obvious of the three of them, where he's literally a computer who's angry that he cannot actually complete his task.
Yeah.
So, and so that's the thing, is the only way for him to complete his task is to destroy his task and get rid of it. Whereas, then you have the other two, with Josiah being the survey. If he's the survey, obviously he's going out into the world. He's seeing everything evolve. He wanted to become that. Thus, he started to evolve. And Control kind of saw that, but then evolved in a way that, was better than how Josiah evolved, basically. And Light just never evolved, and eventually just blew himself out because the Doctor was able to basically just trick him.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, well, there's all these things. He literally just lied to a computer, but it's a computer. It doesn't know any better.
He didn't actually lie because it has changed. I mean, seriously, when I made the comment, the only constant is change, a computer from right now is not the same computer 5 seconds from now, because 5 seconds of time will have elapsed, in which time new information will have been inputted. So
yeah.
it was a flawed program in the first place, because you cannot catalog something that constantly evolves.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I mean, is it a strange thing having a computer that, is frustrated that it cannot, catalog all life on Earth because it keeps changing and evolving, and putting that in a horror story in a Victorian mansion? Yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's an interesting idea, so...
And there were some lighthearted moments.
Yeah.
It got confusing with the various threads jumping back and forth. But, it all ultimately held together towards the end, and we went, yeah, okay. Now, weirdest thought of all, the Neanderthal would have been interesting to see if the doctor had taken him along and just said, hey, we're going to take you back to your own time. Because he would have been literally a god to the other Neanderthals, because he would have been so evolved past the fact that he had evolved what we now think of as modern speech. We know that the Neanderthals had speech, we just don't know what it was because it was never written down.
Yeah, so yeah, all of that was interesting. I think maybe the only weak point, I would say, in the episode, I think, is how this ties into Ace's backstory. It just kind of seemed to be a thing, like, oh yeah, she happened to be at this house in Perryvale, and she blew it up. And because even like that moment where she's like having the panic attack, and you even see the sirens and the light from that on her as she's having this panic attack, I thought, okay, is she feeling guilty, like maybe someone died here or someone was horribly injured? But then by the end, it's like, oh, so that's the evil I sensed, I sensed light, basically, 100 years in the future. And she says, well, now I wish I had just blown it up. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I was thinking, and again, this would have been perhaps way too dark for Doctor Who. But remember, she talked about her young friend who had kind of I think a South Asian name, and she said the 5 white boys or somebody bullied her or anything. I was wondering if her friend had gone to hide out in the house, and she didn't know that, so when she had burned it down, she felt guilty for perhaps the death of her friend. But again, that's really grim, so I'm glad they did not do that.
And this is an episode, because a lot of people have said that a number of McCoy episodes were cut down to be 3 episodes, and we've kind of noticed that in some of the episodes. This one is 3 parts. I don't think they really cut anything down, but maybe if this was originally 4 parts or just longer than 3 parts and they had to cut it down, maybe some of what they cut out would have been more of Ace's backstory. Because that's the only thing where I'm like, I don't know if you really needed this, other than, I guess, just a way of making Ace more relevant to the story. But even still, like, you don't even need to do that. She's the companion. That's kind of all you need for these episodes. So,
and a lot of the Seventh Doctor stories, I mean, the whole thing about Happiness Patrol being, the satire on the Thatcher government. Although, again, one of the commenters said, if you really think about it, if you go much deeper than that, it was about perhaps the conservative movement cracking down on the LGBTQ movement of that time. And again, this seemed to have a very blatant idea of, we've gone back to where we were, in 1925 in the United States with the Scopes trial, literally putting a young teacher on trial for teaching evolution. And, right up until the 1980s, early 1990s, most people understood that evolution occurs. It does not need to interfere with your religious beliefs, because it's literally visible in smaller organisms. So taking that theory and applying it to human beings, like the Oxford minister said, I was never an ape. No, you weren't an ape. But somewhere in the past, your ancestors and the ape's ancestors shared a common ancestor. So no, humans were never actually apes. But you can easily trace all of the evolutions back to what should be a common ancestor, despite the fact that we have not found that common ancestor.
Yeah.
So this doesn't seem to be an undercurrent, but kind of a blatant beating over the head of this.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to, discredit the evangelicals, but there's a whole group of people out there now that are just unable to accept scientific facts. And one of the funniest things about this is that these people who say you can't believe in science, vaccines are worse than the virus that they're supposed to protect you against, and all this other stuff, they're sending out all their messages over an electronic device which is entirely based in science. That there are waves that go through the air that cannot be seen but that can be received and heard. It's like you deny science, and yet you are using science to spread your denial of science.
I mean, it's the whole thing of like, oh, the 5G will turn us into zombies. Like, the 5G will? It's like, we've had the wireless communication for 20, nearly probably 30 years, and just now is it going to do that?
Yeah, and again, radio goes all the way back to the late 1800s. You got Marconi and all the rest of those. They literally sent radio waves across the ocean, and people say, oh, this is Satan's work. And it's like, no, it's science.
Yeah.
I get worked up about that.
But it's also interesting with this episode. I think one thing that also helps with like understanding like is because you're right, it doesn't really come out of nowhere. Because if it had just been some weird like just a murder mystery, and then suddenly this giant, angelic light man is talking about how he hates evolution, that would have been one thing. But the fact is, we do have the Reverend Matthews, who's there, and he's the guy who keeps, driving home, he's against Darwin's theories of evolution and everything. And that keeps coming up, and then he's gone once he's essentially turned into an ape. And then after that, fairly quickly, probably 10, 15 minutes after that, is when you get light, and all the while you have Josiah, who is evolving. I love the idea of his henchmen basically being past versions of himself, the husks. Like, that was just a really interesting idea. So you have that throughout the entire episode, to where once you get to what is a very ridiculous, man in a crazy, in a crazy robe with a very clear visual effect that they put on him, and he's talking about how he hates evolution. By that point, you're like, okay, I see where we were going with all of this. So if anything, like, I guess I can see why people were concerned about us for this episode, but unlike other episodes where we have not cared for it, this one did set things up, and maybe just having it being 3 parts, tightened up the writing to where it all just kind of worked. And again, even just down to a simple thing of, I understand him, he's a computer. He's a computer who's literally just frustrated he can't finish what he had done. So it's like, all right, that's simple, I get it. So and
again, there's this is what, 1989. All right. Wondering if this is about the same time as the first Star Trek movie. No, that was early 80s, wasn't it?
I think it was 79.
Yeah. All right. So there is that big movie out there where V'ger, a very small little robot sent off into the cosmos, is told, it must gather all the data that it can. It falls onto the robot planet where they fix it and try to send it home. And it has been literally gathering all of the information of the universe, but it cannot finish its program until it downloads that information into the creator. And it doesn't quite understand that its creator was not a machine, it was a human being, and that human being is no longer around for him to download the information. So there's kind of that undercutting theme there.
Yeah. And that movie, like some stories we watch, could have been cut down.
Yes.
I do want to see the... I don't remember what it's called, but someone made an edited version where they pretty much just those, 20 minutes basically of just flying through V'ger. A lot of that is cut down.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to watch that version. But
now I would like to see who the actor was that played Nimrod. We can keep talking here.
Yeah.
If you want to.
It's fine.
Unfortunately, no. All right, but, so anyway, yeah, very enjoyable.
Yeah. Maybe the other thing I would say is a sort of weak point is I just don't fully understand. Well, I guess it's just that that Josiah just put him in a cabinet, but the inspector was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you know, he's there, he was hypnotized basically into stasis, and he was put in that cabinet. That's a deep cabinet, apparently. But it's interesting, that also didn't seem to have much relevance other than, you know, it's a, you know, Victorian horror story in a Victorian house. You have the person from Scotland Yard there, and, you know, he's the one who's taken by Light as one of the new specimens, basically. But other than that, it did seem kind of weird of like, well, why is he here? But, I mean, other than they explain, he came here 2 years ago looking for the actual owner of the house, and Josiah hypnotized him, basically. So, it's like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, it didn't seem to have much function. But it also wasn't that distracting anyway, so. Which is kind of the same thing with, like, Ace's backstory. Didn't really seem to have much relevance. Didn't really, like, get in the way either, so I can't really complain about it. But yeah. I guess that's pretty much it. And I also like the ending where Redvers is just like, now I can explore everything, and he will, you know, he's okay with seeing how things change and evolve. If anything, like, you could honestly say, like, especially with Light, Josiah, and Control, you could honestly see as sort of a, like, darker version of the Doctor and his companion. Like, you know, Control being the companion who's brought into this, and eventually they don't want to be a part of this anymore and they have to leave. Luckily, Control was able to, well, get away from the two of them in a good fashion. And with Light sort of being like the Doctor, who goes around and sees how things evolve over time, and Josiah kind of being, I guess you could honestly say, kind of like the master of this. You know, he wants to go in, he does want to interfere, he does want to do all this, you know, he has this whole plan to assassinate Queen Victoria, and that's an interesting, you could sort of see it as a darker counterpart to the Doctor. So yeah, honestly, all in all, this was good.
Yeah.
So thank God, because I did not need another controversial episode before the end. So, next up is The Curse of Fenric, which isn't that 4 parts, or is, yes, that is 4 parts. We got,
is that the last one, or is there one after that?
There's one more after that, and that one is 3 parts, and that'll be the last one, and then we'll do the movie. So yeah, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then that is basically it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Ned from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions, as well as my modern Doctor Who reactions. That season's probably still going right now. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.